Hey everybody, Pumpkin here. Today I wanted to bring you a new deck that I have not put on YouTube yet, and that is Human Usurper. So I put a few Usurper decks in the past up on my YouTube. Most of them have been built around dragons because, well, I love dragons. Dragons are probably my favorite type of cards. But humans are actually pretty good because of this card down here. So one of the issues with Usurper is getting points out in round one. Getting points out in round one can be pretty difficult because, well, you don't play Witchers because you just can't really afford to make the mulligans, and sometimes you don't have your higher point cards. So having points in round one can be quite difficult for Usurper decks. This card right here, Doppler, choose a unit in your hand and boost self by the total number of units in your hand which have the same primary category as that unit. So this deck has all humans. Every single card in this deck is human except for the two Dopplers and Roach. And Roach should never be in your opening hand because, well, you have one mulligan now. So if you have one Doppler in your hand and you play it, it's a 10-point card because you have 9 other cards in hand. It's 10 points on play. If you have two Dopplers in hand, you're going to be playing two 9-point cards. That's pretty good. Two 9-point Dopplers is very strong. Two 10-point Dopplers, or one 10-point Doppler and then another Doppler later on. Very, very strong. So it's surprisingly good. It catches people off guard. And it has, the finishers aren't like crazy. There's no like 3 or 4 card finisher like some other decks have. It's just whatever you have left over, which a lot of the times is good enough. You put a card on top with Albrick, so your card quality on your top decks are pretty good. And you have like Triss Butt so that you have 4 extra power later on in a round because Triss Butt gives you carryover. And Shylard also does that, kind of, right? You can hit the high card, bring it down, which denies the power later on. It's also very, very, very good against big monsters. I consistently hit a Spear Tip or like a Goliath. Goliath goes down to 1 from 10, so you're getting 9 on a Spear Tip. You're getting 12, which is insane. When your opponent plays a 1-point Spear Tip, they cry. Yeah. I'm going to run through the list very quickly. So, Usurper, as you know, got changed. Well, not changed. It got +1 mulligan, which is really nice. And Witchers got nerfed, so this is also very nice. You no longer have to auto-include Witchers. So, Usurper with that 1 mulligan. The only bricks in the deck are Roach and Impera Brigade. So, in theory, you could draw both of them and win coin flip, or rather, you'd have to draw 2 of these and Roach. I've played this deck maybe 20 plus games, maybe 25 games. That has happened one time that I've ever bricked, where I draw Roach and both Impera Brigade in my opening hand. So, yeah, you'll be fine. So yeah, Usurper very strong, denies your opponent's leader. Yeah, you queue this into full test, basically like their Selkirk and their Gaunter. They play and then they have to wait a turn, so you have an answer to respond, or you have a turn to respond, so you can simply lock the Selkirk or the Gaunter to deny it from going off. So starting from the top, Triss Butt. It's just a card that gives you carryover. You don't mind playing this in round 1. Yeah, very straightforward. Having 4 extra points in a later round is very strong. I kind of wanted to run Dandelion Poet in this deck. The problem is this card's way too expensive. It's 14p. It's just too much. Tibor is a pretty good card. Originally the deck didn't have Tibor in it, but I recently added Tibor. I think he's good. I really do. Most people get their high priority cards out early. Tibor usually pulls like between a 1 and a 4. So generally you're getting 10 value for this. Every now and then, not so much, but I have yet to pull my opponent's Spear Tip out, so hopefully that never happens. Shylard, as we mentioned earlier, the card's very good against big monsters. It's good against Scoia'tael because Scoia'tael is running the Immune Dragon that's 8 strength. It works on Skags, it works on Shiru, it works on any Ithlin buff target. It works on Caldwell, which is a very good card right now in the meta. So Shylard overall has been finding very good use for me. So I love the card. So far, at least. Roach, extra thinning. Not that that's important, but it's the extra little bit of tempo in round 1, which is important. It also works very well with a Sire. A Sire is a 9-point play, which is obviously good. You're getting 9 for 8. Count Caldwell. I love this card. This card, since the the bug fix where it counts itself now. So if your opponent has an 8 and you play Count Caldwell, you're paying a 10 for 8, which is really, really good. You also have Tibor to have a high card. Count Caldwell almost never flips. You can also lock it. So if you play this on the board and your opponent somehow plays something bigger, you can play Dora Gary and just lock it, and then it won't flip over. So it's kind of cool. Sire, we mentioned 9 for 10. If you queue into big monsters and you don't have last say with Peter and you're worried that your opponent will play like Ghoul on a spear tip, you can Sire on the melee row and throw away their spear tip. I've done that. It's one me a game actually, so just keep that in mind when you're playing against big monsters. Doragary, lock. Plenty of stuff to lock in this meta. Gimpy. This card's really good. No one sees this card coming. It's worst case scenario, it's a 7 for 8, which isn't that bad, especially if you're removing an engine. If you're killing an engine, a 7 for 8 is fine, because you're getting more than 7 value out of it. Killing an engine is worth more than what you're killing it with. If you hit 2 engines, which is not uncommon, someone will like play a Swordmaster, I'll lock it, and then they'll play the other Swordmaster, and then I'll Gimpy and kill both of them at the same time. It's a 10-point play, and you get to kill one of their engines. So I wouldn't get too greedy with this card, but it can get insane values, especially if you're playing against Northern Realms. If they play... I'm going to blank out on the name. If they play Drog and transform all their humans into specters, and you play Gimpy, it'll hit every single specter. Yeah. So if they have 5 specters with 3 or more power, and you play Gimpy, you're looking at 19 value. Wow. Yeah. So if you're playing against NR, you might want to hold on to Gimpy a little later into the game. Vreemdi, deploy boost a soldier ally and all of its copies by 2. This card's great. If it hits 1 card, so 1 soldier, it's a 6 for 7, which is underwhelming, but very rarely does that happen because you have slave infantry. If you play 1 slave infantry, you now have 2 soldiers, and Vreemdi is getting 8 value. You can play on top of your Impera brigades. And every now and then, you'll have both slave infantries in your hand. You'll play both of them, and this will boost 4 cards for a whopping 12 value. So yeah, very solid card. Works well with the deck. There's a ton of soldiers, so this card is yet to brick on me. I'll brick. I love this card. Draw it in round 1, throw it on the board, boost a unit by 2 in your deck, and increase your draw quality, which is very important. I usually, most of the time, I put a Sire on the top. This is usually going to be one of your better cards because this is a 9. The only card that's better would be Count Caldwell. So unless your opponent has tall removal. So if you think they have tall removal, you should probably go with the Sire because the Sire is 9 on play. Plus the 2. So yeah, love Albrick. And once again, all of these cards are human, so they just work super, super well with Doppler. You have to play it at least once to see the power of Doppler, assuming you draw the card. Slave Infantry, it got nerfed, but it's still a phenomenal card. Works well with Vreemdi. You flip cards. If your opponent plays a Rot Tosser, you get extraordinary value. Still a fantastic card. If you hit a 3, you flip for what? If you hit a 3, you get 7 value. So if you hit a 3, you're getting average value. If you hit a 2 or a 1, you're getting above average. If you're hitting a 4, you're getting below average. You should never flip a 5, obviously, or higher. I don't know how to pronounce this card, and I'm not going to try to. Look at the top 3 cards in your opponent's deck and move 1 to their graveyard. I've been running this in most Nilfgaard decks. It's a nice little tech. Every now and then you play it and you hit a core card like Shiru or Call of the Forest or Drog or just some card. It's good. Yeah. Worst case, you hit like a Roach or a Witcher and it gets like 7 for 6 value, which is good. You get Peter. This card sometimes is great, sometimes is not. I have to keep it in the deck simply because of big monsters. If you reset a big monster, like a Ghoul or an Oswald, this card gets insane value. To the extent that I will outbrick this on top of my deck if I'm playing against big monsters, because resetting a card is, I mean, this card gets 13 plus value on a reset if you reset a Goliath or bigger. Impera Brigade, I mentioned this earlier, works well with Reamd. It also thins your deck. It's a proactive play. Good card. Doppler. This is kind of why the whole deck is human, because, well, you can play 10-point bronzes on turn 1. Who doesn't like that? I mean, yeah, it's just great. Alba Armored Cavalry, melee, lock, and enemy unit. So, Engine and R is pretty popular. This card helps to shut it down. It by no means like auto wins you the game or anything, but yeah, it's a solid card. Works well with Slave Driver. Very strong. Nausicaa Sergeant, probably one of the strongest engines in the game. Slap it on the board, and every time you play almost every card in this deck, it goes off. Everything in this deck has the word deploy on it, other than Magni Division, Caldwell. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah. This card's great. Phenomenal card. Magni Division, another very strong engine. Every turn on turn end boosts self by 1 if it's the only card on the row. Do note, if you play this next to Tactical Advantage, it will not boost itself. For some reason, it counts Tactical Advantage as a unit because... I don't know. Yeah. So, every now and then you'll play a Sire and Roach will come out and screw this card up. Yeah, it happens. Not the end of the world, but if you do have a Magni Division running and it's on like your melee row, you want to hold off on a Sire because you don't want that Roach interrupting the Magni Division. And finally, Slave Driver. Damage an enemy by 2, increased by 1 for each locked unit. This counts both locks on your opponent's side of the board and your side of the board. So if your opponent has played a Siren on one of your cards, so you have 1 lock card on your side of the board, and maybe you've Dorigaried one of your opponent's card, this card will play for 2, damage for 2 plus the other 2 locks on the board. So it would damage for 4. It's a nice card. Typically, someone will play like a Swordmaster or some kind of engine. I'll lock it with like a Alba Armored Cavalry, and then they'll play like another 3-point engine, and I just instantly kill it with Slave Driver. So very strong. There's actually a consideration to dropping like Magni Division and running another Slave Driver. It's honestly not a bad idea. I might actually do that. This card's just pretty good because there are enough locks, and a lot of your opponents are also going to be playing locks. So feel free to drop a Magni Division for Slave Driver if you're running into a little bit more NR than you anticipated. Yeah, so very strong decks. The only cards that I would want to put in this deck that I can't are the 2 Unicorns and Chironex. You can put them in the deck. You would slot out Shylard and... I don't really want to cut Roach, but I guess you could cut Roach, or you could cut Count. Count is such a good card, though. You could fit it. I'm sure you could find a way. You could cut Triss by Shylard and then upgrade a card by 2. That shouldn't be too hard. Upgrading cards is never an issue. So yeah, it's a fun deck. Give it a try. It's a lot more consistent than like the Dragon Usurper decks that I've been playing because those decks have a hard time putting out points in round 1, and having Dopplers, just having a 10-point play in round 1 is just so good. So definitely give it a try. It's probably the best Usurper deck I've seen up until now. Yeah, let's get into the gameplay. We learn it's K? Yeah, alright. We didn't learn anything. All of these games are coming down to, like, do I play around 1 card or not? And I end up, like, playing around a certain card and losing the game. Anyway. It is what it is. Version with Necker's never on Forktail? Yeah? You know that for a fact? Or are you just guessing? Because I don't think that's something that you can say with 100% certainty. So we lock this one, not this one, because this goes to 3, we pop it with sleeve. Hopefully he didn't draw both drowners in his opening hand. I don't really want to thin his deck. Benji, come on, dude. It's usually pretty good. Benji. If he tries to push me, I'll smash him into the ground. But if he plays Spear Tip next turn, I'll play around Spear Tip. Is this ranged? No. Might as well. And we have Peter reset if he tries to play a ghoul. The one card I didn't want to get. I want to play that next round. Whatever. I guess we're playing this. If he ghouls, we just smash him with Peter. Oh, it's so big! And yet so very small. As I said, if he tries to push, I will smash him. I can't tell if he's running Forktails with Neckers, but decks with Forktails use Foglets, don't they? They do both. They run Foglets and Forktails. They run everything. Keep the hand because we have a brick on Brigade. That's the thing. They play everything, and that was kind of my point. They play double Necker, they play double Drowner, they play double Arrakis Spore. They play... Generally, they play 1 or 2 Ancient Foglets. Not necessarily both. And that's why you can't just assume that they don't play Forktails. Also, he played a Forktail earlier on. Hold on to the lock for a Thrive. Sure. It's gonna come down to what this pulls. Ah, he can still win. His card quality is really good. He played an 8, a 9, and an 11. He played a 3. So we win. 33. He'd have to pull up 6. They would have to pull exactly Goliath, but that's not possible because Goliath's on the school. So he'd have to play a 6, which does not exist in his deck.